Ion control. Fire.
Every ship from the original trilogy is absolutely iconic, and despite being one of the least glamorous of the bunch, the subject of today's video is no exception. I'm Joey from Radio Free Coruscant, and this is the GR-75 transport. Design. The Gallifrey Yard's GR-75 medium transport was a bulky yet elegant fish-shaped freighter. Most cargo ships in Star Wars can loosely be sorted into two categories: contiguous volume freighters and container transports. However, the GR-75 actually fits into both categories, with both internal cargo space and racks for a large number of external containers. These cargo racks were a unique design that allowed the ship to be either loaded or unloaded from both the front and the back at the same time, or to be loaded from one end and unloaded from the other simultaneously, with both options leading to a much faster load-unload time than other ships of its size. I know that was too many uses of load and unload in one sentence, but oh well. Each end of the ship was equipped with a freight handling arm, and this system could be combined with special cargo racks at freight hubs to further streamline the process. The cargo containers aboard the GR-75 were magnetically locked to the racks and protected from the elements by a pair of ventral armored clamshell shrouds. Hidden amongst its cargo racks were four tall, narrow-set landing gear that don't seem entirely safe to me, but I'm sure they were fine. At the rear of the GR-75 were its 7 engines, 4 small ones in protected nacelles on the top of the hull, and 3 larger exposed engines below. Also near the rear of the ship was its tiny cockpit attached to a short pylon to give the pilot a commanding view of their surroundings and the ship itself on takeoff and landing. Some GR-75s also had an internal command bridge. The rest of the interior of the GR-75 is not well explored, and its layout probably varied drastically between vessels. It included a fairly large amount of space to carry passengers, which many GR-75 owners chose to convert to additional cargo holds instead. There was also presumably an engineering section, crew quarters, and possibly a few multi-use spaces that could be used for passenger amenities like a galley or lounge, or additional cargo space, depending on what the ship's owner needed. I estimate it to have space for 2 main decks in the upper half of the ship, plus possibly a much smaller third deck down below for either the engineering compartment or just a maintenance well for the cargo rails. In universe, the GR-75 was the successor to Gallifrey's GR-45 medium transport. The two vessels were largely identical, though the older model lacked the 4 dorsal engines. In real life, the GR-75 was designed for The Empire Strikes Back by Joe Johnston and modeled by a team led by Lorne Peterson. The ships were originally intended to be passenger liners that the rebels had hollowed out and turned into container transports. Unfortunately, this backstory never made it to any official media, but a version of it has been brought to life by legendary Star Wars YouTuber E.C. Henry and his art team. Specifications. The GR-75 measured 90 meters long by about 29 meters wide and 17.5 meters tall. It was very slow compared to most other freighters, with a Class 4 hyperdrive and a top atmospheric speed of 650 km per hour. It was also poorly armed, with stock GR-75s carrying no weapons. The GR-75 Combat Retrofit program, devised by the Rebel Alliance, could give the ship 4 twin laser cannons, though. Fortunately, the ship more than made up for these shortcomings in its carrying capacity. By default, a GR-75 could carry either 40 or 90 passengers, depending on configuration. Presumably, the 90-passenger version was configured for short-haul flights like seats on a shuttle, while the 40-passenger version could be for long-haul flights requiring sleeping bunks like a Starliner. However, most GR-75 owners opted to remove the passenger seating entirely and install more cargo space. This was on top of the ship's already astonishing stock cargo capacity of 19,000 tons in dozens of modular external containers. It could also carry 6 months of consumables. In Legends, the GR-75 cost 350,000 credits new, or 125,000 used, but in canon it was priced at just 180,000 credits. History. Sadly, there is little known of the history of the GR-75, despite its iconic status in the Rebel fleet, both in canon and Legends. It was likely introduced sometime in the decade before the Clone Wars. Gallifrey Yards went bankrupt in 5 BBY and was acquired by Kuat Drive Yards, and many of their unsold GR-75s ended up in the hands of various Rebel cells after that. The Rebel Alliance used them for various logistical purposes throughout the Galactic Civil War. They were mostly used to transport Rebel ground troops and equipment, but they were also used as combat resupply vessels in prolonged engagements, and as rescue ships collecting escape pods in battle. GR-75s could be seen in virtually every major engagement of the Civil War, including the Battle of Adelon, the Battle of Scarif, the evacuation of Echo Base on Hoth, the Battle of Endor, and more. The ships continued to see use in the New Republic fleet after the defeat of the Empire, as well as by independent cargo haulers and private military forces such as Janata Security and the Hutt Cartel for decades. Several GR-75s were also present for the Battle of Exegol in 35 ABY. And that's everything there is to know about the GR-75 medium transport. Surprisingly little given its iconic status, but that's just how it goes sometimes. Let me know what you think of this ship, and what other ships you'd like to see covered in the future. Please subscribe as well, and check out another ship breakdown or list next. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next week. RFC, out.